This is Mac OS Ken.
Apple schedules a call, Amazon aims for Apple stars, and no Mac OS Ken next week. More on that in a bit. It is Friday, the 3rd of April, 2026. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by NordLayer. Secure your network, block threats to your business, and save with offer code MacOSKen-10-NordLayer at nordlayer.com/MacOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. Financial nerds rejoice. Apple has set the date and time for its next earnings call. The Cupertino company updated its investor relations page Thursday, putting the March quarter call on Thursday, the 30th of April at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. There will be numbers. There will be questions from analysts. There will be words spoken in response to those questions that, who knows, might even sound like answers. If you want to follow it in real time, you do that. Numbers will drop by a press release after the close of trading, hitting Apple's investor page at about 1:30 p.m. Pacific, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on the 30th. Half an hour later, it's that call and response call. You can hear that live on Apple's site. It'll also turn up as a podcast a few hours later, and we will hit highlights the very next day. Amazon is trying to up its satellite game, though to do so, it's going to have to go through Apple. The Financial Times ran a piece Wednesday that had the storage and e-commerce juggernaut looking to buy the satellite telecommunications group Globalstar, according to secret people said to know things about things. Terms of the deal were not disclosed, though the Financial Times puts Globalstar's value at $9 billion, so let's start there. Amazon said to be interested to strengthen its low Earth orbit satellite business. The report says the acquisition would accelerate Amazon's push to compete with Elon Musk's SpaceX and its Starlink orbital internet service. So what does any of that have to do with Apple? Well, not only is Globalstar the company that handles blank via satellite features and functionality for iPhone, Apple owns a piece of it. According to the Financial Times, Apple invested $1.5 billion in Globalstar in 2024, taking a 20% stake in the company. As part of the agreement, Globalstar agreed to reserve 85% of its network capacity for the iPhone maker for satellite-based texting when outside cellular tower coverage. The report calls Apple's piece of Globalstar a complicating factor for Amazon's acquisition, and you can see why it would be. Apple will probably want a return on its investment. Either that or assurances that a significant percentage of network capacity will still be dedicated to iPhone. Or maybe both. The Financial Times' secret sources say Apple and Amazon are in discussion over the acquisition. Amazon declined to comment for the Financial Times. Apple didn't respond to the request for comment. Globalstar said it doesn't comment on industry speculation or rumor. Consumers in Russia are officially, though not quite totally, cut off from Apple services. If you're like me, you thought that actually happened a while ago, soon after Russia's invasion and attempted takeover of Ukraine. Not so, says a piece from 9 to 5 Mac. While card payments to Apple were already blocked, according to the site, it had been possible to transfer funds to an Apple account via mobile operators. Emphasis on had been. According to a machine translation of a report out of Russia, from the 1st of April, iPhone owners will not be able to replenish their Apple ID balance from their mobile account. The operators of Russia's Big Four mobile carriers were instructed by the Ministry of Digital Affairs to disable the option that became popular after the ban on Russian cards to pay for foreign services. That ruling by Russia prompted a support doc from Apple. According to that, as of the 1st of April, payment processing is no longer available for purchases made on the App Store or other Apple Media services in Russia. This might affect your existing subscriptions. New purchases, including in-app purchases and subscription renewals, are no longer available in Russia unless you have funds in your Apple account balance. So remaining funds can be used, hence my saying folks there are cut off officially, though not quite totally. Affected properties run all through Apple services. Called out by name by Apple were Apple Arcade, Apple Fitness Plus, Apple Music, Apple Podcast subscriptions, Apple One, App Store purchases and subscriptions, Apple TV purchases and subscriptions, iTunes Store purchases, ringtone and tone purchases, and iCloud Plus. So basically everything. Now, I kept iCloud Plus for last because it could have been a big deal. At first glance, it would seem that people would lose access to their data floating in Apple's cloud. Not so, though. For Russian citizens with an iCloud Plus subscription, Apple says data will remain accessible after their subscription ends, and that they can continue to manage their storage and download their iCloud photos and videos. As for why Russia's closed the loophole now, 9to5Mac says it's likely to block access to VPN apps. The piece points out that those can be used by Russian citizens to get around internet censorship. You know, Apple's kind of taken it from both sides on Russia this week. On one, Russia blocks people from paying it. On the other, an Apple subsidiary has been fined for breaching Russian sanctions. Mac Rumors ran a piece at the start of the week saying Apple's Irish subsidiary has been fined £390,000, about $516,000 US, by the UK government for making payments to a sanctioned Russian streaming platform in 2022. Basically, Apple made two payments to the streamer just after the UK put sanctions on Russian companies following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I gotta say, I'm glad I'm not the only one who gets confused by this stuff. Addressing the issue, Apple said in a statement, "We follow the laws in the countries where we operate and take sanctions compliance extremely seriously." After identifying two payments to a developer that days earlier had become affiliated with a sanctioned entity, we promptly and proactively reported our finding to the UK government. We are constantly working to enhance our already robust compliance protocols, which are consistent with industry standards. We follow the laws in the countries where we operate is a phrase we've heard from Apple more than a time or two. That said, it's worth keeping up with where and when that line moves. I told you last week that Apple has rolled out age verification in the UK. A piece from Engadget said iOS 26.4 had added the age verification requirement in the United Kingdom. While it was something the UK government wanted, it was not something required by law, according to the piece. And yet now it's a thing in the UK. Move ahead a week, and a piece from 9to5Mac says it's also a thing in Singapore, where it apparently is required by law, and in South Korea. A piece from the site Republic World out of India says at least some of the moves align with growing regulatory pressure in multiple regions. In such regions, the piece says Apple's move appears to anticipate these trends. Even in cases where laws do not explicitly require device-level enforcement, companies are beginning to implement stricter controls to stay ahead of regulation. Leaving AirDrop open to receive from everyone all the time was always a questionable practice. But you could do it. Then China apparently leaned on Apple to strictly limit that window because protesters in Hong Kong were sharing information safely and anonymously by leaving AirDrop open all the time. And now for some reason the whole world has a 10-minute limit on having AirDrop open to receive from everybody. It was always a questionable practice, but we used to have that choice. Now, anticipating regulatory trends, Apple is enacting measures that, while maybe well-intentioned, may not be what everybody wants. The ease with which Apple has folded on certain requests here in the States, well, it's probably worth keeping up with where and when the line moves between following the law and obeying in advance. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, NordLayer, a toggle-ready network security platform built for today's business. Nord is a name you've known for years, thanks to their consumer VPN. Built for business, NordLayer brings the VPN and a whole lot more. They've recently partnered with CrowdStrike to bring Falcon endpoint protection to small and mid-sized businesses. That is enterprise-grade security for your business. There's access control, making sure only the people you want in your system get into it, and threat protection measures to keep malware and phishing attempts and other dangers way the heck away from your people. All of that in one easy-to-use platform with no new hardware required. It is a security layer over your existing devices, no matter which platform or platforms. NordLayer includes step-by-step onboarding and 24/7 support, and they have an exclusive offer for macOS Ken listeners. Get up to 22% off NordLayer yearly plans plus 10% on top with offer code macOSKen-10-NordLayer at nordlayer.com/macOSKen. Try it risk-free with their 14-day money-back guarantee. NordLayer, toggle-ready network security built for your business. Get savings on top of savings with offer code macOSKen-10-NordLayer at nordlayer.com/macOSKen. Apple's Lord of the Rings is headed east. Engadget says Apple VP of Fitness Technologies Jay Blahnik is retiring this July. According to the New York Times, according to Engadget, Blahnik told employees in an email that he was leaving to spend time with his family and move to New York City. That is a weird thing to throw into a departure memo, isn't it? If you're not familiar with the man, Engadget says Blahnik oversaw Apple's Fitness Plus subscription service during his time with the company. Prior to that, he helped create Apple Watch's fitness features and was also known for creating Apple's famous activity rings. News of Blahnik's departure comes about a year after allegations that he created a toxic workplace environment. An internal investigation by Apple is said to have found no evidence of wrongdoing by the exec. So I know I went on a bit yesterday about the upcoming Apple TV series Cape Fear looking like too much for me. Billed as a psychological horror thriller by Apple, the teaser was just... no. Now Apple TV has issued a press release and a teaser for Widow's Bay, and thought I might be saying the same thing again. This is the one about a small town off the coast of New England. The mayor wants to make it a tourist destination, but weird things keep happening. Dark things, apparently. Apple calls it a genre-bending series that blends genuine horror with character-driven comedy. So I'm watching the teaser, and it's just horror, 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 landing on one of the biggest laughs I have had in a while. Will the horror be worth it? I don't know. But the laugh was so big, I think I'm going to give it a shot. The first 2 episodes of Widow's Bay hit Apple TV on Wednesday, the 29th of April. The teaser is up now on YouTube. And finally today, Your Friends and Neighbors is back. I'm starting again. And finally today, episodes of Your Friends and Neighbors are back in rotation. The second season of the John Hamm, Amanda Peet, Olivia Munn, and James Marsden series has kicked off on Apple TV. The story revolves around a guy, played by Hamm, with a good-paying job who turns to a life of stealing from his friends and neighbors to maintain this lifestyle once he loses that good-paying job. Season 2 has him doubling down on his thieving, though that line of not work is threatened by the arrival of a new neighbor, played by Marsden. All of Season 1 is available to stream now on Apple TV. The first episode of Season 2 is also up as well. A quick programming note from me to you. No programming planned next week. I've got activities, some of which I'll tell you about when I return. That makes it sound more exciting than it is. Or does it? See, now I've made a big deal about it. I'm going to a couple of PaleyFest panels, one for the Apple TV series Pluribus, and another for the Apple TV series Shrinking. I may be in the same room with Harrison Ford. I mean, it's a big room. There will be hundreds of us there, but still. I'm hoping to drop by a friend's art studio and see what he's working on. Oh, and I'm going to go see a magic show. It's kind of a staycation for me. Keep the feed open. If anything crazy happens, I'll drop in. Otherwise, we'll talk week after next. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by NordLayer, toggle-ready network security built for your business. Get savings on top of savings with offer code macOSKen-10-NordLayer at nordlayer.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can find me on Mastodon, macOSKen at mastodon.social. You can also send me an email, info@macOSKen.com. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.